What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you are enjoying the third Victory Polo Monday in the last 4 weeks. That's right. The Dallas Cowboys victorious on Sunday, December the 15th, on the road against the Carolina Panthers. And so, because it's the day after Dallas Cowboys win, I have a polo on. It is Victory Polo Monday. It's always Victory Polo Monday, even when it's a Tuesday, even when it's a Friday, even when it's a Saturday, whatever the case may be. You don't necessarily have to, wear anything or paint your fingernails or wear a cap or a scarf. As long as you have a Dallas Cowboys song in your heart, you are participating in Victory Polo Monday. So a happy VPM from me to you. It is the day after the Cowboys beat the Carolina Panthers, and we have a lot to get to, a lot to discuss in our day after thoughts discussion. That's exactly what we do. In case you're new around here, I don't know how that would be possible, but if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing right now to the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. You can do so right down below. I'm here all the time talking about our favorite team that hurts us in ways that other teams simply are not capable of. But every day after the Cowboys play a game, after we've had a night to sleep and rest and reflect and think, we kind of sit and chat and assess what we just saw through some calmer lenses, some more measured perspective. And I think that, that has allowed us to have the thoughts that we do every day after each Dallas Cowboys game, not just victories. Unlike Victory Polo Monday, we do this autopsy no matter what happens. So let's take a look at it. You can read this article at blogontheboys.com later on Monday afternoon. Maybe not if you're getting here right when the video is published. If you are, love you very much. But make sure to check out blogontheboys.com all the time. We have so many wonderful things coming out from all of our talented staffers. But day after thought number one for me following the win at Carolina is Maris Liufau will be an important part of next season's defense. Now, I bring this up because, or I should say, I bring this up under obviously poor circumstances. We were all devastated last week when DeMarvion Overshown had the injury, the one that's going to knock him out in all likelihood through not just the end of this season, but all of next season. Obviously, there's a lot of time between now and the end of next season, so we'll ultimately see. But clearly, the initial assessment of DeMarvion Overshown is that he's going to miss some serious time. And it's a bummer for every reason, but DeMarvion Overshown was not just playing well, but playing like a superstar. And when you think about, on top of the Overshown situation, the reports around Trayvon Diggs that his knee injury could cause him to miss time into 2025, you're talking about a Dallas Cowboys defense that is now, for at least some stretch of time in 2025, going to probably be without both DeMarvion Overshown and Trayvon Diggs. That is suddenly a very difficult thing, even when you have a player like Micah Parsons, who is so wildly talented, and it is so stupid that the front office is even entertaining the idea of trading him. And for what it's worth, if you're somebody who's sitting there saying, well, what do you expect them to say? I expect Stephen Jones to be asked about trading Micah Parsons and go, we are absolutely not going to trade Micah Parsons. That is the dumbest idea I have ever heard. Ian Rappaport or whoever, don't even suggest that to me. We're going to get a deal done with Micah Parsons as soon as possible, although the moment to do so would have been last offseason, and they have already taken a step in the wrong direction there. But back to the point at hand, that the Cowboys have discovered Maris Liufau is a really important thing and a really foundational thing for this defense, and we have no idea what it's going to look like next year. We have no idea who the coordinator is going to be, obviously. We have no idea what help it's going to have, whether that comes by way of even mild free agency or if it's just going to be by way of the draft. But Maris Liufau is a part of it, and I'll be honest with you, I thought that forever Maris Liufau would be the player who was drafted instead of a running back. If you recall, at the end of the third round in the 2024 NFL draft a few months back now, the Cowboys obviously took Cooper Beebe, and he was the player that they got with Detroit's third round selection that they offered Dallas in the trade up in the first round when Dallas moved back and took Tyler Guyton. But the Cowboys had that second, third round pick, and they took Maris Liufau, and we all thought, I think that should have been the running back. We've had that conversation a million times over. But the fact that Maris Liufau is turning into a tried and true legit linebacker is really impressive. And I mean, call it the number 35 on a rookie linebacker for the Cowboys. Obviously, that was Overshown last year, and that's Maris Liufau now. But linebacker has been a position of extreme skepticism for all of us for a very long time. If we don't include Micah Parsons in that conversation, and I don't think it's fair to because he's a pass rusher, I mean, who are the linebackers that that this team can depend on. Damone Clark hasn't really panned out into anything, obviously, and we're in the first year of Leighton Vander Esch's retirement and haven't necessarily found a full and total answer. But the fact that the Cowboys now have a legit piece to work with in Maris Liufau as they head towards a sea of unknown, that they have this commodity already understood and established, it's a very big thing, I think, for the sake of the defense and really the team as a whole. So an extreme shout out to Maris Liufau for just making the most of the opportunity, the unfortunate opportunity in terms of how it happened, but a serious high level, the highest level of kudos that are possible to be offered to Maris Liufau. He has played very, very well. Day after thought number 2 for me. I have no idea why it's so small right there. Let me zoom in. But this is maybe the most controversial day after thought that I'm going to have here. Rico Dowdle's performance is informative for the future in many ways. I'm going to take this off the screen and I'm just going to talk to you. Okay. You and I need to have a conversation because you're not going to like it. Okay. I'm going to be straight up. You're not going to like it. Some of you will be okay with it and some of you will tolerate it, but okay, here goes. Now, look, I'm an Arizona State Sun Devil and I maintain that Cam Scatterboo should have been at the Heisman Trophy ceremony. He's the best running back in college football in my mind, but I can recognize that's a biased mind. All right. So I can recognize that Ashton Jeanty is inordinately talented. I can recognize that he is amazing, that he is wonderful, that he is all these things, right? We can agree on that. I can recognize and admit to you that whoever drafts him is going to have an amazing, amazing, amazing player. Okay. We agree with that. What we should also be able to agree on is that drafting a running back in the first round, call it 17 overall, and that's an approximation, right? We still have 3 weeks to go in this season. You get my point. Call it 15. Let's call it 15, 16 overall, somewhere in the average area, because that's where the Cowboys are going to wind up being at this rate. That is a luxury that this team cannot afford. We know, and that's why I'm saying that this is an informative sort of thing in a lot of ways. And I'm sorry to be jumping around, but there's a lot that goes into this conversation for those of you that are team draft Ashton Jeanty, because I know you're out there. Okay. This whole thing, if I try to go chronologically, this whole thing reminds me of 2015. Obviously, that was a lost season for the Cowboys. Tony Romo missed 12 games. The coaching staff hilariously only won one of them. And they earned in painful fashion the 4th overall pick. But as they earned that pick, Darren McFadden, who was the free agent signing du jour for them ahead of the 2015 season, Darren McFadden produced a 1,000-yard season. Now, some important context behind Darren McFadden's 1,000-yard season in 2015 is that he was not the starting running back for the Cowboys when the season began. It was Joseph Randle, and he wasn't even really the secondary option. Kristen Michael had a cup of tea. But Darren McFadden, even after some time of not getting tried and true legitimate opportunities, turned in a 1,000-yard season. Now, it's also important to contextualize this in saying that the offensive line that Darren McFadden ran behind in 2015 was kind of like the peak version of the offensive line that we all loved, and the offensive line that gave the Cowboys the national reputation that they have along their offensive line. We're talking about peak Tyron Smith, peak Travis Frederick, peak Zach Martin, although his peak was forever. That was rookie Lyle Collins. I mean, there was so much about that offensive line that was extremely special. So it made sense that Darren McFadden could obviously turn in 1,000 yards behind them. And so it would have made sense on some level. And look, this was a decade ago, and we've learned a lot of information since then. It would have made sense on some level to have said to yourself, and I'm sure that many of you did say this, I was getting into blogging and things like that at the time. And I know a lot of you have followed me in my career since then, and I really appreciate that. But I'm sure some of you said at the time, look, if Darren McFadden can be successful behind this great wall, this great offensive line, they don't need the 4th overall pick. And this isn't an anti-Zeke thing, because Zeke has been a wonderful player for the Cowboys. He had an extraordinarily special, early portion of his career with the Cowboys. He was a massive return on investment in some ways, but in other ways, it was just never possible that he could be because of the position that he plays, right? We've seen that kind of bear itself out. Running backs don't matter and all that stuff. So should the Cowboys have taken Jalen Ramsey with the 4th overall pick? We're not here to relitigate that situation. But what we are here to say is that what Rico Dowdle is doing behind an offensive line that is nowhere near as talented as the group in 2015 that took us into 2016, what Rico Dowdle is doing in the here and now is proof positive again. I don't mean to say that anybody can do this, but that you don't need Ashton Jeanty to do this. And I'm not discounting that Ashton Jeanty can do some special things. I recognize that's the point, right? I don't just want anybody, RJ. I want a home run hitter. I want somebody who can score a million touchdowns, who can do all these things. Ashton Jeanty can definitely be that guy. I totally hear you and I totally understand you. And I completely acknowledge and admit and agree with the notion that you have to make some level of investment, some level of resources have to go to the running back position. It is not a matter of truly anybody can do this. And I don't mean to say all of this to take away from Rico Dowdle, but what Rico Dowdle is proof of is that when you find a talented enough player, and I think that Rico Dowdle checks that box, and when you give him enough opportunities, and the Cowboys are obviously doing that kind of right before Thanksgiving, at least to this point in time, good things can happen, even when you don't have a legitimate threat of a passing game, because they haven't had that. Now things have been a little bit better, obviously, as of late, but you get the overall point. So what I want the lesson that the Cowboys to learn from this whole thing, what I want it to be is, okay, we don't have to. This team has jumped from one end of the spectrum back to the other, and I don't want them to completely pass it once more. Right after they let DeMarco Murray walk in 2015, right, and that was wise. They didn't overpay, and then immediately right after in 2016, a year after not paying DeMarco, they spent the 4th overall pick on a running back. What are you doing, dude? And then 3 years later, they doubled down on that by giving Zeke the contract extension. And I understand they did what they did. Not here to relitigate anything, as I mentioned. And then after letting Zeke walk and all that stuff, they went to the complete opposite end of the spectrum, which is how they kind of started this season, and saying that we can just put anybody back there. No, dude, it has to be a legitimate quality NFL back. And so I want them to find a legitimate quality NFL back, but you don't have to spend your first round pick there. And I would add a little bit more context to this situation in saying that we're already starting to hear reports about how the Cowboys are going to be going at free agency the same way. They're going to be frugal. They're going to blame the cap and the pie and all this stupid stuff. So we can understand, we can acknowledge, all of us as Cowboys fans, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this team is not going to spend in free agency, which means that the most valuable resource that they have, the biggest dollar bill that they have to spend this offseason is their first round draft pick, right? Wherever it ultimately lands. That's the biggest thing that they have to cash in as far as the entire offseason is concerned. It's a massive, kind of coin to ultimately exchange, right? We get this logic. You cannot do that at the running back position. If you want to spend in free agency and attack your needs elsewhere, fine by me. Go ahead. I would love that. And then you put yourself in the position of luxury of being able to spend that first round draft pick on somebody like Ashton Genty. But if this team, and ultimately, I don't mean to hedge myself, but if this team goes about things in the offseason the way that we have seen them do so historically, it would be categorically irresponsible of them to do this. Rico Dowdle is proof of that, like I said. So this is an interesting kind of level of an experiment for us to learn from, relearn from, continue to learn from. And so thankfully, it's going to be a conversation that we have to have daily for about 4 months, starting in about 3 weeks or so. So yeah, that's where I stand on things. My final day after thought, there is a very legitimate need for another reliable wide receiver. Now, I wrote my stock report on Sunday. I did write it on Sunday, and it came out on Monday at blogontheboys.com. You can go check that out as well. And it was full of stock ups. In fact, there were 9 stock ups, 10 total stocks handed out. 9 were in the up direction. I think it was a great game from the Cowboys. We've already kind of touched on that. And I mentioned that a lot on my post-game show that you can go watch here that I streamed initially in the Bleach Report app. I'll be there, by the way, on Sunday after the Buccaneers game, Sunday Night Football. Catch me in the Bleach Report app right afterwards, and we'll throw the show up here for you after that as well. And so something I mentioned in both the post-game show and in the stock report, and that I'm talking about now with you here, is Jalen Tolbert had the touchdown, and it was remarkable. It was a great catch. Good for him. But he also had that really unforgivable 3rd down drop. And I think that there were some people after the offsides penalty at Green Bay at Lambeau Field in his rookie season in 2022, right? I think there were some people who fairly said, look, the Cowboys put too much on his plate. And if you rewind the clock, if you go back to 2022, that was the offseason of trading away Amari Cooper and all that stupid stuff, and then spending the 3rd round pick. Remember, the Cowboys in 2022, they cut, obviously, Lyle Collins. They let Randy Gregory go, and they obviously traded away Amari Cooper, and that was really stupid. And then we saw their first 3 picks in the 2022 NFL draft directly replace those. Now, Tyler Smith has been phenomenal, and Sam Williams has been a good player, and obviously has been injured this entire season. But then they spent their 3rd round pick in 2022 on Jalen Tolbert, and it kind of felt like those are supposed to be the one-for-one replacements for the players that I just mentioned. And so they put an enormous amount of expectation on rookie Jalen Tolbert, and he couldn't live up to it, and that was just unfair to him to do. And I think that we saw some progression from him last year, 2023, to be very clear. And some of that was because the Cowboys had traded for Brandon Cooks. And there was that level of, extra relief to kind of add for Tolbert to take some things off of his plate. And then we heard all the stories. And I think the stories were fair and not flawed at all, that he spent all this time working with Dak Prescott. I think that's noble. I don't think that any of this is for lack of effort. And I don't mean to make a mountain out of a molehill of just one singular drop on a third down, but we're at the end of year number 3 here. And there has not been a significant step. There just hasn't been. He has not become a proper running mate for CeeDee Lamb. And we have not seen this team commit to having multiple superstar wide receivers. It gets so annoying to admit how jealous we are of Philadelphia and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And I wouldn't even, you don't have to look farther. Look at what Washington is going on. I mean, there's a million teams in the NFL. Obviously, Buffalo is having all sorts of success after having traded away Stephon Diggs and stuff like that. But you get my point. The Cowboys have to devote some level of resource to a serious running mate for CeeDee Lamb, because it's not going to be Jalen Tolbert. So that's an important takeaway that I think we have to have. I think if you haven't admitted that to yourself, you have to be able to, following Sunday's game at Carolina. Thankfully, a win, and thankfully, ultimately one that was a nice game from Jalen Tolbert with an impressive touchdown catch. But those are my day after thoughts that you can read at blogontheboys.com, or you can just rewind this video and listen to me talk about once again. My name is RJ Ochoa. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or Threads at RJ Ochoa, TikTok, rj.ochoa. On Blue Sky, just search for me, RJ Ochoa. If you want to send me an email, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com is the way to do that, or you can leave a comment down below. For now, though, my friends, I'm going to bid you adieu. I'm going to hope that you have a wonderful Monday night watching 2 games. I don't know why we're still doing this as a society. Nobody wants this. Nobody likes this. 2 Monday night games are dumb. I take that back. 2 Monday night games are fine. I would love 2 Monday night games if you staggered them. What I'm bothered by is competing Monday night games. I want to enjoy one game and be on Twitter and enjoy everybody talking about it at the same time. I don't want to have my iPad or a second screen or a split screen or whatever. That's not what Monday Night Football is about. That's not the spirit of Monday Night Football. So fix this crap, NFL. You're already ruining this week by having games on Saturday during the college football playoff. So I'm a little on edge, but I'm working on calming down. So thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out. Eat something delicious, and we have some fun things in store for you as this week continues to unfold. And until then, we'll see you next time.